Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to Muslim Network TV. I'm your host, Muhammad Maxwell Hassan, for Canada Today Youth Edition. Yes, my middle name is Maxwell. And for today's topic, we're going to be talking about something very, very special. You know, one of the famous self-development industry leaders by the name of Jim Rohn said something along the lines of, you are the sum of the top 5 people you hang out with. So even right now, as we speak, you know, pull out your phones, look through your contact lists, check out your Facebook friends. Who do you interact with the most? Who are the people that you hang out with the most? Who are the people that you communicate the most? Are they affecting you in different ways? Maybe there's some things that you picked up that you didn't even realize. And so for today's topic, we're going to be talking about your inner circle, talking about who are your friends. And so with me today, we have 2 amazing youth guests here, and we'll start off with Brother Ahmed Bustani. You may know him online as A Bustani. He started his live broadcast 4 years ago, and his views have reached an international audience. Youth have converted to Islam by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his relentless efforts in networking with influencers to shape the new generations to come. Jazakallah khair for joining us, Ahmed. Awesome to have you aboard. With us here today also we have Sister, assalamu alaikum. And so with us here today we have Sister Fatima Zahra Muhammad. You know, Sister Fatima is a student leader and activist currently at the University of Toronto studying human geography, environmental studies, and forest conservation. You know, growing up she was highly involved with the Muslim community in Mississauga. She spends her time working with youth organizations, the UFT Women's Circle, reviving the Islamic Spirit Youth Corps, and the Muslim Chaplaincy. The current UFT MSA Vice President, external, to create safe spaces for students to forge their identities as Muslim Canadians, with special focus on nurturing connectivity between campuses and developing dynamic bonds among Muslim youth. Welcome aboard, Sister Fatima. And you know, on top of this, you know, the fact that you're in environmental studies and forest conservation, we got something right here, you know, just for you. You know, we got some nice greenery in the house. And so, mashallah, khair. So both of you really thank you both for taking the time to discuss a really pertinent topic. So ladies first, with Sister Fatima, talk a bit about, let's say, if you can share an experience that you had where friendship was really vital, really important. Perhaps maybe you had a positive experience with someone as a friend, or maybe someone, you know, really negative experience that really opened your eyes to the importance of friendship. I mean, do you have a story to share as a starting point, Sister Fatima?
Yeah. The story specifically, I guess, is more of not about a person, but more about a conversation I had that kind of opened my eyes to change the way I kind of view friendship. At U of T, we have the Muslim Chaplaincy. We're blessed to have them on our campus. And so we were at a Muslim Chaplaincy halaqa, and we were talking about the role that Muslims play sort of in each other's lives in our friend circles. And we were talking about how in a sort of moral relativist society, it's easy for things to kind of slip into like a gray area. We want to be neutral to not offend anybody. But talking about how in our close circles, we have a responsibility to be a force of good, not just a force of neutral. I think growing up in Islamic school, I was just used to having people around me who would put me towards good and away from bad, and realizing that as we become adults, that's the role that we kind of play in our close friend groups. And what stuck out to me, I'll get to the point, is somebody mentioned that it's really a disservice, honestly, if we are not playing that role. You know, the idea that I love you for the sake of Allah, I want to see you in Jannah, inshallah. So when we view friendship in the capacity that it has for growth and positive reinforcement and wanting just the absolute best for our friends, I thought that was really beautiful. And I thought that that's something that we can implement in our friendships. It's kind of a cognitive shift that makes you think a little bit differently about friendship. Yeah.
Amazing. So there you go. It's all about thinking about others, what you want for yourself. That's a very nice conversation, real eye-opening. Brother Ahmed, do you have a story for us? Something about the importance of friendship that really opened your eyes to this conversation?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Firstly, I just wanted to kind of build on what Sister Fatima said. I mean, the answer is just beautiful. She actually mentioned a hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibbu li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi." none of you truly believes until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And it doesn't mean that you're not a full. It doesn't mean that you don't believe at all. It just means that your iman, your faith, is incomplete until you love for others what you love for yourself. You know, throughout life, as we all know, we know that you know, people come and go. A lot of people come and go. Everybody's, you know, conditions are changing, inshallah, for the better. But you know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih," that a person, an individual, is on the religion or the way of his friend, his companion. And us in the West here, you know, many of us, mashallah, we go to universities and colleges, we have interactions at work and whatnot. So it's kind of impossible to think that everyone is going to have the same views, religion-wise, and, you know, all of that. But it's also very important to understand that, you know, who you surround yourself by is, you know, it's a force that you are on the way of the ones that are around you. And one thing, and I hope that my my boss would forgive me for including him in this, is you know, I actually used to work at a shop not too long ago, about a few years ago, and you know, to that shop was kind of I'm going to say anti-religion in a sense. I didn't really like it when I had to take some time off to go to Friday prayers, and you know, praying at work, it wasn't their thing, so I had to kind of like hide in places and stuff like that. So I asked Allah. I was like, you know, ya Allah, just I want to be in a place, I want to be in an area where, you know, they don't mind me praying, even if I have to go out to my car or whatever. I just don't want, you know, I just don't want to get, you know, these dirty looks from everyone everywhere. And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered. And where I work now, my boss, he's actually, he's such an amazing guy. And my family would testify to that as well. At times I would forget, you know, when I'm working and I'm doing my thing, I would actually forget to pray. I'd be like, hey, Ahmed, what are you doing? And I'll be like, well, I'm just, you know, finishing up, you know, this panel on the car. He'd be like, did you pray yet? And I'd be like, no. He's like, okay, drop what you're doing and then go pray and then come back and finish up where you're. And he's not a Muslim, right? He's not a Muslim. He's a Christian. But these interactions, you know, to have another individual to have that kind of respect, to have that kind of adab, as we say, or in English is comportment, you know, etiquette, that's very, very important, you know, because other people will look at you and be like, the person that he hangs around, that's a reflection of who this person is, right? So having these good companions, if they're not good, at least they're trying to become good, you know, because the Prophet ﷺ as well, he also says, that a believer is the mirror of another believer, right? So, you know, one example I could give you of that is, you know, for example, your eyes, right? Your eye, it can see everything, but the eye can't see itself unless someone puts like a mirror up to it and shows, you know, everything that the eye is made of. And so when someone shows you, this is what you are, this is what's reflecting, right? Everything becomes clear to deal with.
Mashallah, that's amazing. A lot of nice analogy, you know, where you can see, sometimes we can't see ourselves. We need a mirror to be held up to see our, you know, we have blind spots. And so we got to, you know, check for that. Mashallah, very nice analogy, nice story, Ismail, that you have some people from different faiths and they still respect your faith, which is beautiful. Let me move on to Sister Fatima. Now, you see, you know, we're in Canada, and if we take youth, let's say who are in college or who are in university or who are in high school, if you were to take Muslim youth, generally speaking, let's say from a sister's perspective, in your opinion, what are some of the observations or patterns that you've noticed in terms of how Muslim youth today look at friendship overall as a subject? I mean, what are some of your observations that you've noticed?
Yeah, for sure. I think growing up in Canada and growing up in general, being a young person can be a little difficult. There's so much at stake, the future, the present, interacting with so many different kinds of people. So I think in general, friendship is viewed as finding your niche. You know, it can be exciting to have so many options and to interact with so many different kinds of people, but it can also be a little confusing to find out, you know, where do I actually belong? I relate to so many different people. So friendship being a niche that you find a place to belong, a place to connect with people, be it people who have the same religion or play the same sport, or so many different ways of connection. But as a broad sense, a friend group is really finding your place that you belong. I think that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, having like a chosen family. Yeah.
Chosen family. Look at that. That your inner circle. Really, you're trying to look at it. Brother Ahmed, from a brother's side, how do Muslim youth, brothers, how do they look at friendship? I mean, are they picky? Are they choosy? Are they just whatever? I'll just hang out with the next person. What do you think about, you know, Muslim youth from a brother's side in terms of looking at friendship as a topic?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides my tongue here, because I don't want to say anything that, you know, that's not in my field, you know, considering that I'm not a youth now. I'm not going to age myself. But one thing that I would say is, you know, we have to really understand that the loss of adab is actually, you know, etiquette or comportment is actually a very it's a crisis, especially in the world that we live in today. And Sayyidina Naqib al-Atas, he's a modern philosopher. He actually wrote an entire book arguing that the central crisis within the Muslim world is actually the loss of adab, the loss of etiquette. And you know, choosing your inner circle, choosing your inner friends, you really have to understand that there's a lot of people nowadays. There's lots of influences from social media. There's lots of influences in music. There's lots of influences in you know, things like Netflix and all that other stuff. There's lots of influences that really, you know, suggest the loss of adab, which it's very easy to get lost in that train of thought, where, you know, losing adab is very easy. I would also say that, you know, when someone is choosing a friend, you have to look at how they are, you know, like their character. So, you know, Plato says, the philosopher, he said, an hour of play is actually better than a year of talk. So seeing how someone acts, seeing how someone works, seeing how someone, you know, behaves, within 1 hour, you're able to tell exactly what he's about, what they're made of. And because everybody's able to talk, everyone, yeah, you know, I'm amazing with religion. And this is a little bit of a side story. You know, working within the Maidan of religion, within the area of religion, we see a lot of people nowadays, they talk about, you know, how amazing religion is and how everything is, you know, deen and you know, all of that. But then when it comes down to it, you know, they kind of force their culture on top of religion, as if religion is like, yeah, that's good and all, but we'll just keep that to the side for now. When the Quran and religion, I know is a little bit of a side story, but when religion is clearly telling you and it's indicating what to prioritize. Now, with that being said, when you're looking at someone's, you know, Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, you know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's cousin, he said, "Al-mar'u makhbu'un tahta lisanihi. Mata takallama urif." When, you know, a person is actually hidden underneath his tongue. When he speaks, he's known, right? So you see people, you know, again, nowadays, and especially in the West, you see a lot of people with, you know, very foul language whenever they speak. You see a lot of people, you know, acting a certain way, looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, hygiene, all of that stuff. That's one thing, right? But then when they speak and when they talk, you understand, like, there's something different about, you know, a believer, right? The Prophet ﷺ says, "Laysa al-mu'min al-ta'an, wala al-la'an, wala al-fahish, wala al-badi." A believer is not someone who's always cursing others. He's not swearing at others. He's not foul. He's not foul mouth, right? So, like I said, I mean, you know, going back to the previous point, you are who you surround yourself by, right? So,
MashaAllah, that's a good point. I like that the analogy you gave. Was it Plato you said about the hour of play? I gotta tell you, for someone, I remember the good old glory days when you used to play. I can attest to that. I can see people's personalities show up on the court. There's some people who are they're natural givers. They pass a lot. And then, there's some people who want to be a hero all the time. They're the ones taking the shots, and even though it's ridiculous. So, subhanAllah, I can attest to that part. MashaAllah, it's a very good analogy and good point as well that you brought up. But speaking of, the whole, I don't want to say like Western versus Eastern or anything of that nature, just civilization now, 2020. I want to piggyback off this and then go back to Sister Fatima. Brother Ahmad, there's this, I should say, maybe this perspective and this $1 million question that isn't resolved. I don't know if it'll ever be resolved, but it'd be interesting to hear your take on it, especially from a Muslim standpoint, and especially in the college and university world. Can men and women be just friends? This is something that is prevalent. It's something that's out there, maybe not talked about often. It's a very sensitive topic. Everyone has their own opinions, but in a delicate fashion. From a Islamic perspective, what would you say is a healthy way to look at this situation, or this whole phenomenon, I should say, like this question, this $1 million question?
Me first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Piggyback off of it, what you were saying before about the
okay. Yeah. I would say this is a question that a lot of people ask. Personally, I don't believe in opposite gender interactions unless there's things like business and stuff like that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that religion wise. But in Arabic we say, or back in Halab in Aleppo, the city that I'm from, we say shaitan namat, that the devil, the demon, is not dead yet. Meaning that everything starts out innocent. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh no, it's okay. We're just talking about work interactions. Oh, it's okay. We're just talking about the MSA. We're just talking about such and such. We're talking about such and such. But then, the mind starts to work and the mind starts to wander, and then the waswasa of shaitan happens. And this happens on both ends, right? It doesn't just happen on one person's end. So, and when you really understand that, you really understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kind of curbs the interaction with the opposite gender, right? In such a way. I mean, and it doesn't mean that we're not allowed to have these, natural emotions, but within the book, within the testaments, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides these emotions in a way that's healthy for us, right? So, personally, I don't see too much value in having a lot of female friends, versus having a lot of, male friends. I personally, I like, a lot of people that can teach me something, and that's Sheikh Mustafa Khattab, and Dr. Munir Al-Qasim, Sheikh Hamid Slimi, and these are the people that I look up to, and these are the people that I want in my inner circle. It's people that I can learn from and give my own input from. Not to say that there's sisters that I can't learn from. MashaAllah, there's lots of sisters that I have learned from. And but just to safeguard myself, I try to keep it at an arm's length and not engage in too much conversation.
Okay, fair enough. So treading lightly and treading with caution seems to be the name of the overarching. So Sister Fatima, I'm really, really curious to hear your thoughts and perspective on this never-ending debate. Can men and women be just friends? I mean, any thoughts on this matter?
Yeah, I think it depends on our definition of friends. So if we're talking about the definition that we kind of touched on in the beginning of the broadcast about, friends being people that help us to become the best people we can be and bring us closer to our deen, I think it's important to approach all of our friendships with that idea of, these are my guiding principles. Is this someone who's going to bring me closer to that? Is it someone who's going to help me to become the best person and the best Muslim that I can possibly be? And if yes, amazing. If not, ensuring that we're still able to be professional and respectful and aware I think that's definitely the way that I would approach any friendship. And yeah, and trying to work with people of all different kinds. So I definitely agree with what I've said.
Okay, fair enough. Mashallah, very good point. So, it all boils down to semantics. You gotta make a clear definition. If it's not clear to you, it's not clear to anyone, then that'll align very quickly. So, good point, mashallah. Going back to Sister Fatima again, can I kindly ask, what are some of the challenges that you feel a lot of with regards to friendship? I mean, one example, just to toss it off there, is peer pressure. That's a big one, right? People, they're looking at magazines, looking online on Instagram. I got to look a certain way. And so a lot of sisters are going through and articulate, really frame this. So a lot of sisters who are out there, maybe who are going through some, when it comes to friends, can see it in a new light.
Yeah, for sure. From what I understand, like some challenges that arise with forming friendships, it's universal to women in general, not just Muslim women, but unfortunately from a young age, we're kind of we're taught that there's this competition among women. I mean, I can give you a dozen examples, but just one that comes to mind is, being the fairest of them all. Just this idea that in the media and society that we have to compete with other women. It's really damaging perspective. It affects the way that we engage with other women throughout our lives as we grow up. And it's not just superficial. I think it overlooks the severity of the problem to think that it might just be material or whatnot. Even in, like, for example, in the academic world or in professional worlds, it affects the way that we engage with other women, work with them, the capacity to sort of form sincere connection. And this surely affects boys as well. But we're not completely doomed. It takes understanding that we have this internalized competition and tackling it. So something that I've talked to a lot of my friends now that we're in sort of the academic world, we're scrolling through Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever means of social media, and we see that people are working on a project, or they're working on a project it's right in our field. And I think, I wish I was working on something like that. Why didn't I think of something like that? We had this inherent competition in so many different ways, but I think it seems simple, but something that really is a first step to tackling that is, maybe shoot her a message, say, mashallah, I really love the project you're working on. You're doing great. May Allah put barakah in your work. Let me know if I can help you out. And again, it sounds simple, but approaching it with that humility of, we can support each other and we don't have to have this competitive nature. I really do think that it's a good first step in tackling this internalized competition that really does affect our ability to make friends. And inshallah, it helps us to kind of break that down. Yeah.
MashaAllah, that's a wonderful point, Fatima. It speaks to, I remember one of my professors taught me this, that there's something called the law of abundance and the law of scarcity. You can either look at the world through limited lens, only one winner, there can be only one that's on top, and then there are some people who say everyone can be a winner, right? So if you have to be mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? That means you have to Miss Universe. This is crown. That's one way. But mashallah, everybody can succeed. Allah SWT has blessed us all with all these unique gifts. We can all do wonders. So, main points, I say, in terms of what are some of the challenges in particular from the boys' side? You got to be rough and tough, or what do you think? What are some of the unique challenges that boys face in friendship?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just to build on what Sister Fatima said, there's a lot of superiority within, of course, both genders as well, within the Muslim community. Not just in the Muslim community, but just naturally, there's lots of competition, and there's a maqal where it basically says, صحبة الجاهل الذي لم يرضى بنفسه خير لك من صحبة العالم الذي رضي بنفسه وأي علم لمن رضي بنفسه. the companionship of an ignoramus who is not pleased with himself is better for you than the companionship of a scholar who is pleased with himself. And what knowledge does a person really have if he's actually pleased with himself? Now, this holds true in a lot of senses, because one person, a person who's an ignoramus, who's ignorant, and he's trying to work on himself for the better, right? He's going to try to lift you up, and because whenever you make a mistake, for human beings, nobody's perfect, right? Whenever you make a mistake, he's going to call you out and say, hey, listen, whatever you did, you're a wrongdoer there, and let's see how we can rectify that. And there's the leveling plane that we want. However, and that's better for one. That's better for an individual, because when someone knows that there's something that has to be fixed, like, you don't go to the doctor, when there's nothing wrong with you, right? And the doctor's not going to be like, well, what's wrong? Oh, I don't know. Well, why are you here? Oh, I don't know. Well, then I can't help you, right? So when a person of knowledge, a scholar, is happy or pleased with himself, and I say this with respect, being around that person, they're gonna feel themselves as more elevated than others. And this is an exemplar. It's not an actual situation. But I'm saying this with respect. So, but that's the point. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fatih, He says, بعد نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. He says Muhammad is the messenger of God, right? And this is one of 4 areas where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by name in the Quran. Just a little bit of a deviation, but he says Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, والذين معه, and the ones that are with him, أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. They are harsh onto those who are transgressing, those who are rejecting. They're harsh on those people. But what are they amongst themselves? رحماء بينهم. They are merciful amongst one another, right? And that's what the Prophet ﷺ came with. That's his message, right? He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ بِالْحَنَفِيَّةِ سَمْحًا. I was sent with a tolerant religion. Our religion doesn't tell us to oppress people, have a sense of superiority, have a sense of, I'm better, you're worse, and, our religion tells us to lift one another up, right? And that's recognizing that other people also have issues, other people also have circumstances, other people also have hardships, right? Just like we have hardships. But within our hardships, we find the hope of lifting one another up. And that's what love is. That's what mahabba is.
So that's amazing, mashallah. So lifting others up, and this is how you can, time is not just, you can grow by pushing people down, or you can lift people up, and so you choose to go the healthy route, mashallah. Amazing. This leads me to another good point, I think, just based on that answer, that a lot of people, maybe you might find quote unquote are toxic, or what are some red flags that, when you see someone here, what are some red flags that you would look for when, let's say, you're about to meet someone new? Let's say the first time you're about to meet someone new and potentially might develop a friendship. What are some of those warnings or red flags that you feel you would be looking for to make sure that, I want to make sure that this person is going to be a good friend and not someone who's going to be a source of heartache and headache down the line. So what are some red flags that you would look out for in choosing a friend?
Did you want me to start? I can start that. Okay.
Yeah. It's good. Yes, it's about.
I think observing the way that people speak about others when they're in your company, I think that's something that I've noticed a lot working with different kinds of youth organizations is that, unfortunately, speaking about others in sort of this idea of gossip can be very easily rationalized, which is really scary, in this sort of coded language that I'm not gossiping, I'm telling you, you know, you might have to work with this person, or you might have to, you know, interact with them in this sort of capacity. And it's a scary thing to know, because knowing of how big of a sin backbiting and gossiping sort of is. And we do want to assume the best of people. We do want to assume that, you know, they're telling the truth, in that their intention is in a good place. But the reality of the sin of backbiting is that it so quickly snowballs. And it can start from a place of, you know, nasiha and giving advice to someone, but it can so easily, you spend an hour and all of a sudden you're like, how did we get here? How are we talking about these things that are so clearly not information that needs to be discussed? And I think holding your tongue and hoping that the people around you will do the same. So yeah, in terms of red flags, observing the way that people speak when they are, another person's name is mentioned, or, you know, another action is mentioned. It's an easy thing to kind of just observe and know that if you are talking to them, you will likely not be the exception. And just being wary of holding your tongue and hoping that others will do the same. Yeah.
MashaAllah. So that's a key one right there. How people speak about others. And Brother Ahmed, any red flags? What are some things that you would be on the lookout for? You meet a new brother. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ahmed. Hey, I want to be your friend. And what are some things, checklist? What are some red flags that you're gonna say? You know what? Best, you know, salam, but you know, salam, right? Like, you know. So how do you?
Of course.
What are some things that you?
No, I would say, I mean, just to build on Sister Fatima's point, she made an amazing point on seeing how they talk about others in conversation, because, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you know, in the sound hadith, talking to Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he's a fairly young Sahabi, very handsome-looking young man. You know, he had the hadith is fairly long, but I'm just going to compartmentalize it, inshallah. You know, he had the honor of traveling with the Prophet ﷺ, and when they were, you know, sitting down and, you know, they're camping out for a little bit, you know, just taking a rest, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, you know, tell me of an action item that I can do that could enter me into paradise and distance me from the fire. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, you know, you've asked about something amazing, ya Mu'adh, right? You've asked about something amazing. And after the Prophet ﷺ tells him about, you know, siyah, you know, fasting and praying, birrul walidain and all of that stuff, he's like, should I tell you the common denominator of all of this? And he says, yes, Rasulullah. And he says, he holds his tongue, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he holds his tongue, and he says, kuffa alayka hada. He says, guard this one. And he says, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he says, Ya Rasulullah, wa inna la mu'akhadun, like, are we going to be taking into account for what we just say? And he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I'm just going to translate it in English because of the time. He says, are people not thrown on their faces or dragged by their noses in the pit of hell except from the harvest of their tongue? So a lot of people, I mean, it's very easy right now, ghiba, you know, talking, you know, backbiting, talking about others when others aren't present. Especially now in the age of social media, where we have, you know, things like phones, and we have, you know, the Facebook and stuff like that. It's very easy to get lost in that, right? So when someone says, whoa, listen, I don't want to hear about this. Hey, did you hear about so and so? You know, they're beating their wife. Whoa, calm down. Why do I have to know that? You know, so that's a very big red flag. According to the hadith, you know, in the spiritual realm, when the body wakes up, you know, in you know, after when a person wakes up in the morning, the al-jawarih, the limbs, like your arms and your legs, they all shake in the presence of the tongue. Give me one second, I'm just trying to push my cat off the table. The limbs shake in the presence of the tongue, and they say, Ya lisan ittaqillaha fina, in awajajta awajajna wa in istaqamta istaqamna. O tongue, be mindful of Allah regarding us. If you go astray, we all go astray. And if you are upright, we are all upright. And the reason they're talking to the tongue is because al-lisan huwa tarjuman al-qalb. The tongue is the translator of the heart, right? So when someone speaks, when someone talks, when someone behaves and acts in certain ways and stuff like that, it's basically like a sponge that's squeezing out everything that's in the heart, right? And sometimes it's hard because some people, they can't tell what a person is saying, and sorry, that just kind of threw me off a little bit. It's okay. It's hard to understand what some people would be saying, but related to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, "Simahum fi wujuhihim min athari sujud." And then He says, ذلك مثلهم في التوراة والإنجيل كزرع أخرج شطأه فآزره فاستغلظ فاستوى على سوقه يعجب الزراع ليغيظ الكفار. He says, you'll see their value manifested on their faces. And a lot of people kind of misunderstand that ayah. They think that, oh, it's because of, from the sujood, like you'll see their value manifested on their faces. They think that it's that little mark that people have over here because of how much you make sajda. It has nothing to do with that, because some people, if that's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to think, He would have said fi jibahihim, on their foreheads. You'll see their value manifested on their foreheads because of how much they said that. He didn't say that. He said ala simahum fi wujuhihim. It's in their entire faces, right? Min athar sujud, of how much they make sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how often they're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this exact similitude, the ayah is not done yet, right? The verse isn't done yet. He says, this is a similitude of the people that were in the Torah, which is the Jews, wal Injil, which is the Christians, right? And these are the people, they're good people. It doesn't mean that there's all, maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. It doesn't mean that. It just means that what's in one's heart is going to be manifested here, right? So if you see someone just walking around all the time, always upset, a lot of people get that notion nowadays. Oh, you're an imam, you're not allowed to be smiling. Says who, right? As if it's like written on the job description of an imam. لا يجوز لك أن تبتسم. It's not allowed for you to smile. To skit famak. You have to be, you have to close your mouth all the time. Look harsh all the time. It doesn't say that, right? So that's like a smile in the face of your brother is a sadaqah. So when you see someone interacting and they're happy to see you, oh my God, I can't, I love you for the sake of Allah, my brother. That's someone that you want to keep around, right? Because they're always reminding you of what the bigger picture things are. However, when someone is always kind of like, let me tell you about me, and everything is nafsi, this whole selfie culture, I like to call it nafsi. These with the phones, everything is always about me, right? Everything is always this. That's kind of someone that I understand. There's a little bit of narcissism there, and that's something that if they're open for criticism, okay, let's go from there. If they're not open for criticism, I'll just save my breath, inshallah.
Let's see. MashaAllah, that reminds me, there's a phrase that says, face your problems, don't Facebook your problems, right? So I guess you gotta just face reality as it comes. Seems like the common denominator between the two is gossip. How we use our tongue, how we interact with folks, it plays a huge role in if we're going to pursue friendship with someone, which is great to know. And although, almost as all good things must come to an end, we're going to be wrapping up the show. But as always, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. Let's start with Sister Fatima. To wrap up, if you could give some advice. Let's say there's a sister right now watching you. There's a sister right now watching this, and she's in college or she's in university, she's in high school. She's unsure about her friends. She's unsure about her inner circle. She's not sure if the people she hangs out with, the band, let's just say she's looking for advice. What would be your advice to give to that sister who's watching as a youth?
for sure. I think, first of all, as we've talked about, sort of looking for friends who are people who are going to bring us closer to our deen. And I think, especially in university and in the world, in learning new things and meeting so many different people. I remember in my first year, I met so many people who thought so many different things, and I was questioning things and learning new things. And it's exciting. But when it comes to our friends and our close friends, don't compromise your values. We can learn new things and we can explore all these avenues, just ensuring that we keep those guiding principles as things that really guide us along the path, and seek out people who are going to develop those and strengthen our bonds of kinship and relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just hold fast to that. I think it's so easy to just get caught up in that whirlwind. I remember when I would be commuting back home from university every day, I would be like, felt like I was leaving this whole world that I had been absorbed in for the whole day. But ensuring that through all this change, again, it sounds simple, but really the core of it is ensuring that our values stay strong and seeking people who allow us to keep our values in place, inshallah.
MashaAllah, never compromise your values, and you're going to be like a magnet. You'll attract, think like you, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So, Jazakallah khair, Sister Fatima, for that. Hold strong on your values, which is awesome. And Brother Ahmed, any parting words or thoughts, gems of wisdom, and when it comes to choosing your friends or this whole topic of friendship? If you could speak to a brother right now, he's watching this, and he says, I don't know if I'm hanging out with the right people, or you know what, everything is good to me, I'm just hanging out with the right people. I don't know. So what advice would you give to someone in order to make sure that they don't fall off the rails or successful time when choosing their friends?
Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he once said in the sound hadith, he says, أعزنا الله بالإسلام ولو طلبنا العزة بغير الإسلام أذلنا الله. Allah has ennobled us, He's honored us by giving us Islam. And if we seek anything other than that, if we were to seek any sort of honor or stature in anything other than Islam, Allah will humiliate us. And it's actually a very beautiful question that you just asked, because a lot of people now, they think, oh, because I'm Muslim, I'm different. We're forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made us وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. We made you a moderate religion so that you could be testimonies about people. So a lot of people think you're the one that's weird, when in fact we're the ones that are supposed to be the light that shines everything around. And if we're having some of these mixed feelings on, I'm not sure who my social circle is and whatnot, and we're just unsure. Uncertainty is a very, very common thing in today's day and age. They say tashabbahu bil kirami in lam takum minhum. At least pretend to be like the people of kiram, of the people of falah, the people of success towards Allah, even if you're not like them, because even pretending can get you there, right? Because you want to be that person, you want to be that source of nourishment. A lot of people, they say to me, oh, I want to inspire people, I want to motivate people, I want to do such and such. Well, why do you want to do that? I just want to inspire people, but why? And you keep asking them these questions until they get to the source of it, and it's so that people can do it. But why are you trying to please people when you should be pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? So when you understand that you're trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He even says to the angels, tell so-and-so, tell the angels, tell so-and-so that I love this servant of mine. And when they do that, everyone around you will fall in love with you. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. Right? And from that, everyone is going to want it, like you said, birds of a feather flock together. Everyone is going to gravitate towards you because they understand that there's something different about this one.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed and Sister Fatima. You two have been phenomenal. You've shed a lot of light on this topic of friendship And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all your efforts in terms of trying to help all our youth, maybe who've fallen off the rails or trying our best to, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunite us all in Jannatul Firdaus. And like our Prophet ﷺ taught us, that you will be with those who you love on the day. So may Allah make us among people who are deserving of that and in the best way possible. So thank you both, Sister Fatima and Brother Ahmed. And for all those who are watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I also want to thank the production team for doing everything behind the scenes. It's been amazing. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Muslim Network TV every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Amazing topics for youth coming up each week, and looking forward to having you all. Until next time, this is your brother Muhammad Maxwell Hassan. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.